my number one is Dead Poets Society from 1989, directed by Peter Weir, um, starring Robin Williams, obviously, and a whole bunch of amazing young actors who went on to do great things, Ethan Hawke and many other people. The synopsis is Maverick teacher John Keating uses poetry to embolden his boarding school students to new heights of self-expression. So I watched this movie, I want to say in my 20s. And from that time itself, it just hit me in a very, very profound way. And since then, of course, I watched it many, many more times and its meaning keeps growing. But I think at the core of it, it is sort of what you were just saying about Truman Show, which is that you have to keep pushing yourself to find your purpose and your inner calling, whatever that might be. And you have to question the authorities and the tradition that you were born in, to find who you are. It's a lifelong process, and it may not always end in the best possible way, like it doesn't for the lead character here, who through Robin Williams's mentorship and coaching really pursues his desire to be an actor in plays and such, and ends up committing suicide, which is, very, very sad and such. But I think despite the hard ending, I still walk away, at least I walk away from it wanting to pay that price where you have to question who you are and figure out who you are. I think over time, what's interesting is that when I first watched it as a 20-year-old, I had a very sort of anarchic kind of mentality towards this. As, yeah, of course, I'm not going to just do what my parents think is best for me or what the school thinks is best for me. And I kind of looked at the lead character in that light. But over time, as I've grown older, like we've been talking through other movies too, to me, it's now more about questioning, leaning in, interrogating what is being handed to you, really assessing if this means something to me or no, and then sort of taking a call, as opposed to just like, flipping the table, or in this case, standing on the table. So I think it's sort of just grown deeper and deeper for me in that aspect. The other big theme of the movie, I think, is just the power of mentorship and power of people who believe in you. It's something that I crave so much in my life. I think I am my best self when I'm surrounded by people who believe in me. And it's not about approval. It's just that somebody is by your side and has got your back and makes you feel supported, And I think this is one of the best portrayals of that ever for me in my movie watching history, of just looking into Robin Williams' eyes, the way he looks at these boys, how much he cares for them. I've had moments of that in my life through teachers and mentors and, bosses and friends and obviously parents, but it'll be a lifelong craving for me because it's just so amazing. And then the last theme I would touch on is just finding your own people, through this kind of catalyst in the form of Robin Williams's character. These boys, they find who they are. And it's just so fun watching them kind of go to this cave and have their Dead Poets Society meetings, and they're going on these, walks and talks with their professor and bonding with each other. I think I didn't have that experience in my life. I wish I'd had that experience, but I was very, envious of that people at that young age finding their tribe, and it's a tribe that doesn't like agree with each other all the time. They're exploring life together. I think that's the beauty of it. Like finding a tribe that wants to explore life with you, which makes it so rich. So yeah, I this is a personal favorite. Even though I know how the movie ends, I always break down because how touching it is. And I guess the other theme is just, fathers and sons. This movie can very easily portray the father as a bad guy who's just controlling his son for no rhyme or reason. But but there's humanity there. You understand where the father is coming from. It's a time where they don't come from an illustrious, influential, rich family. So for them, the son doing well at this hoity-toity boarding school and sort of playing by the rules is important. He has no idea, and he's never sort of questioned what his son wants, because he didn't grow up that way, the father. His father never gave him that agency either. So I think you really feel for it. And the last few scenes when the parents in the library are just like, and the father especially, are just completely wrecked. It wrecks me every single time. So beautiful movie, transportive in its quality, the world that they build, beautiful fall movie. What a great launch pad for so many young actors. It's just so delightful to watch Ethan Hawke and Josh Charles and all these people who obviously went on to do great things, but this is where they started. It's like a meta quality, because for them, Robin Williams was that character in real life in a way. And I've heard Ethan Hawke talk a lot about that, where, you know, how he was so serious as a young actor and how Robin Williams just wanted to laugh and play, and really sort of showed him the path to see that, you know, and value that. So yeah, this movie will stay with me forever, and I hope I keep, you know, questioning and pushing the meaning of life. So yeah, that's my number one.
Yeah, this film is fantastic. I would have put it on my list if you hadn't on yours, because I've also have connected with this film for many, many years. I actually saw this for the first time in high school on video, and I went to an all boys private school with uniforms, and this reminds me a lot of that. Like I lived a very similar experience to what is portrayed in. It wasn't a boarding school, but it was that same type of environment. And I've definitely had teachers that have pushed me in this kind of way in that similar environment. So I always had identified with this film simply because of my own life experience for my entire life. And I come back to it quite often. I think it's incredibly powerful. And like you, actually, the first time I did see it, the messages I got out of it were, nonconformity and don't listen to your teachers or whatever. That was what first resonated with me. And the more and more I go back to it, the other themes start, coming out. Obviously, there's the famous sequence of carpe diem, like seize the day, live your life. And then I love the message too, where Robin Williams is basically, talking to them about kind of defending liberal arts education in a way of being like, well, yeah, you can do a job or pursue something to live your life, like a STEM thing, but that's not what you live it for. Like you live your life for your passions, and there's nothing wrong with then pursuing those. Like if you just make all your money and have a career, but it's not fulfilling to you, then what's the point? And that message definitely resonates with me a lot. But the most recent time I saw it, actually, it was interesting because I was looking at it more with this through the lens of it's a system that's kind of oppressing these kids, system of society, the school, expectations of their parents. Definitely Neil, who's the character you mentioned, who commits suicide. He's under all those pressures of this system. And in the end, the system does win. Like the system fires Robin Williams. He gets fired. He gets blamed for the kid pursuing acting and eventually killing himself. And the kids are back and like the more with the mundane teacher, and Williams there is leaving. But there is the, I guess, positive ending, because you could look at it as negative, like Robin Williams gets fired, this kid who gets inspired commits suicide because he can't beat back the system of his own parents' expectations. But at the very last scene, like you referenced, the students stand up on their desks in solidarity against the system to support the teacher, even though, again, he is getting fired. It's not like they're doing anything practical, but it's showing that they will never forget. And to me now, I get the message of, there are these systems that do control you. And the only way to fight back against them is really through solidarity. Like if one student stood up on that table and said, I support you, Ron Williams, but no one else really does, that doesn't really mean as much as all of them kind of getting up together. And then it's that they recognize amongst themselves what this system has been doing to them. And then as a group go and then push back against the system. And then that is really something that I think the only way you can fight back against these things a lot of the times is with other people and not really on your own. Because like Neil, the student who committed suicide, he failed to do that. He didn't get enough then support from his classmates there. And I think you raise a great point too about the father, which is something also that as I've gotten older and rewatched the film, that character does become a little bit richer. And the tragedy of his character, I do think you kind of touched on too, is he's trying to live vicariously through his son. He never had opportunities, so he's forcing his son into the life that he actually wanted and wasn't able to achieve. But instead, his son doesn't want that life. He wants to be an actor. He wants to pursue something different. And because he is too afraid to stand up to his father and really be honest with him about what he wants out of life, because he has that fear, then that his father never really understands him. Going back to your theme from Arrival, they have miscommunication. The son is afraid to say what he really wants in life. And the father isn't really, doesn't know himself enough. Actually, going back to one of my films, Nightmare Alley, he's now burdened with this. Oh my, I came from nothing and I worked my way up, and my son should do the same, because he's living his son's life instead of letting his son live his own, because of this past trauma that he has that he's not able to get over. So in a way, this movie, actually, the more I talk about it, does kind of encapsulate every single one of the films we already talked about. It really is just it's a masterpiece. And Robin Williams' performance is one of the best performances I've seen in a film. It's just really inspiring and definitely moving every time I see it. So I'm definitely glad we're talking about it. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah. Also, two Peter Weir movies, which is interesting. And what a great coincidence. I agree with you on sort of, the solidarity and fighting back with the system. That's definitely a part of it. To me, the theme that resonates even stronger is that each of those boys are changed people now.
Right.
Together or alone. Mm-hmm. And yes, you can, if you want to go and fight the system together, you can do that. But to me, that's not that important. It's actually, what do you believe in in life now after having gone through this, and how are you going to engage with life? And I think these boys are changed. Mm-hmm. They're not all going to grow up and become Robin Williams for sure.
No,
they're going to have this core inside them, which is all about questioning, assessing who you are, asking these big questions of life, and literally appreciating art in life. Because I think the movie also is making that point that art matters. Mm-hmm. And humanity matters through that. So even in that sense, I don't think the system won, actually, because these boys are changed people, and the kind of people they will marry, the kind of kids they're going to have, the kind of friends they're going to surround themselves with is going to be a little bit different. So it also shows that it doesn't take a lot. It's just one teacher, in the grand scheme of events, it's like nothing, but it doesn't take a lot to just slightly show people something a little bit different, and that can spark something. I don't know, maybe that's just the optimist in me, because people are also known to just circle back to who they are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think these boys, they have this experience at such a formative time in their lives that I think it's gonna be okay for them, or better.
It is interesting. Like, I feel like kind of what you said, maybe half of them or 90% of them are probably going to go up and end up being like stockbrokers or whatever, like their parents wanted, even though they are changed. I do definitely find that the most recent time I watched it too for this, about just that parallel between Neil having that self-discovery, but not having the courage or the strength to actually act on it. I mean, that's not meant to be a pun because he's an actor, but he's not able to escape his father's expectations. It's like kills himself because he is alone. And that change, even though you change yourself, it's sometimes you can't overcome those things without other people. And that was something that just I took away from this most recent time I watched it, that I hadn't before. Because again, I think this movie is just so layered and so incredible. And I definitely, if the listeners have not seen this, I think we've heaped enough praise on it to make it obvious that they should go off and watch Dead Poet Society for sure. It's fantastic.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.